and our team for coming out. This is a comprehensive planning meeting, which was presented to County Council, and now we're bringing it out to the neighborhoods. Some of you don't know me. My name is Councilman Glenn Davis. I replaced Ms. Floyd. I've been in office next month, make 2 years. Seems like 20 years, but that's all right. So I'm gonna turn it over to the staff of Anderson County Planning.
I am Chief of Permitting for Anderson County Planning and Development. Long title, short job. We're here today to talk about the comprehensive plan update that's being done. That was supposed to have been done a couple of years ago, but due to COVID, we had that delay. So without further ado, Ms. Brittany McAbee is going to give you the information in regards to the update, and it's just for the data only. We're not doing any maps now. 2026 will be the full update for a new plan, which you all will be involved again.
So a comprehensive plan is a legal document. It's the official statement of a local government deciding what our goals are, how we want our future to look, and things of that nature. Now this is just an update, so this is basically just a statistical update of how we've grown as a county within the last 5 years, technically 7 years, because our last update was 2016. So why is a comprehensive plan needed? It is actually legally required for us to have land use regulations. So if you guys like things like setbacks, which is how close houses can be to each other, and minimum lot sizes, in order to actually have those regulations in place, we have to have a comprehensive plan. That is South Carolina law. So going briefly into the history of comprehensive plans. Sorry, I did not realize I was blocking y'all's view. It came about in the 1994 South Carolina Government Comprehensive Planning Act. Before this act, most of our land use regulations in the state code were all over the place. So, politicians actually got together and made one comprehensive act. So why are we here? The local planning commission, which some of you may have attended the meetings, I do recognize some of y'all from attending previous meetings, they will develop and implement the plan. In this case, staff developed it, but planning commission will adopt it, and then it will go on to county council to be fully adopted. And it does have to be updated every 10 years, so that's the 2026 plan that Henry had briefly mentioned, and we will be talking about a little bit later. But for this purpose, this is just a statistical update. So the elements of the comprehensive plan, these are by law. So there's population, economic development, natural resources, cultural resources, community facilities. Community facilities sounds weird, but it's actually just the services we as a county provide, as well as like public works that we provide. There's housing data, land use, transportation, priority investment, which is basically capital improvements projects that the county has planned, and resilience, which was added by law in 2020. Resilience is our environmental resilience to natural disasters. There's also some optional elements that a comprehensive plan can have. Those include energy, urban design, social infrastructure, tourism. Coastal is up there, but we're not on the coast, so we don't have to worry about implementing that element. So this is just a procedure of how a comprehensive plan comes to be. So staff will develop it, then planning commission will review and make a recommendation of the plan to council. A public hearing will be held at council. Then county council will review and adopt the plan or make changes if they so choose. And then staff and planning commission begins the implementation of the plan. So our main topics today, these are the biggest ones that changed and are the most, frankly, the most interesting ones, is our population increase, economic development and workforce changes, as well as the new resilience element. So we did increase in population. Our population in 2020 is 203,718. As you can see, our population keeps going up and up and up. Various reasons for this. People are moving from other countries to here, as well as from other parts of the U.S. So people are coming, they're not going to stop coming to Anderson County. Now, this is in comparison to 2016. Our estimated population was 192,709. So that is a pretty big increase. When we're talking about census data, the 2020 census data is wildly known to be kind of inaccurate, and by inaccurate, it is usually lower than what the actual population is. So our population is definitely more than 203,000, but we have broken that 200,000 threshold. So this is the comparison, our growth rate comparison. Changes from 2010 to 2020 is an 8.9% increase in Anderson County. You can compare that to other decades. Again, that 8.9% may not be accurate. It might be a little bit higher than 8.9%. We have more growth in the United States as a whole, but less than South Carolina. So, and then we're going to talk about CCDs. So that's census county divisions. Homeland Park, for the most part, is mostly in this Anderson CCD. So I'm going to, for you guys, I'm going to focus mostly on that CCD. This is census county divisions. So whenever we do statistical data for certain areas, this is what the federal government uses. This is different than council districts. This is a federal division of our county. It is not an actual council district. So this is the comparison of the CCD's growth rate. As you can see, the Anderson one is increasing steadily, is also the largest. So again, yours is at that top. In 2010, it was 81,000 roughly population, and in 2020, you guys have an 87,000 population. 2030 prediction for this area is a 93,000 population. Now, just talk about statistics, this was just a simple projection dividing each year by, I'm all over the place, I apologize, dividing the previous decade's difference, divide that by 10 and add that percentage. So it's a very simple projection. So it's not a guarantee, it's just a simple projection. So this is the percent change for you guys. It was a 7.5% change this last decade. So you've increased about 107.5% since 2010. So this is the distribution of ages in Anderson County as a whole. Anderson County is getting older, so that is important for planning for the future. From an economic development standpoint, our workforce is aging, so that will be something that we will need to at least bring in younger people and / retain younger people. It is also important for us to plan for healthcare needs. As you get older, you do need more healthcare, so making sure that we do have adequate facilities for our aging population. And then this is the demographic profile. Focusing again on you guys, which is number one, population 87,000. 22.5% is under age 18. 18.5% is over 65. 67.2% is white. 22.7% is black, and 10.1% is other. 5.4% is Hispanic or Latino of any race. If you guys do go into this a little bit more in depth, you will see that there was a change in the census classification of Hispanic, because Hispanic is not a race, it is an ethnicity. So that you may look at previous numbers and see a little bit of a change there. So these again are the racial trends. This is, you can kind of see there was a little bit of changes in that Hispanic Latino origin just because of that change in the classification. But that is the overall Anderson County racial trends. And this is the Anderson County educational attainment, Anderson County overall. What I find to be interesting is we are our population is more likely to get a high school diploma than they were previously, which is great. But if you look, our bachelor degree actually went down from 2010 to 2020. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It was a data point that stood out to me. One of the reasons I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing is because we do have opportunities in Anderson County now for people to be able to get jobs, entry-level jobs at manufacturing facilities, make a good living without having that bachelor's degree. So I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but it was an interesting point when I was going over the data. And this is our household income. Anderson County is less than South Carolina. Of course, places like Charleston do skew the data because if you live near the coast, you do make more money. But median household income is $50,000. Per capita income is $27,000. Per capita income is taking that average income and dividing it by the population. And then persons in poverty is 14%. We are going down in the percentage of poverty. Not necessarily thinking that we're doing such a great job in that area. It could be that inflation and things like that have made more people in poverty, but the federal guidelines haven't caught up. So that's just something for us in the future to keep an eye on as well, because we still do have poverty in Anderson County that we do need to keep an eye on. So this is the economic development. This is the percent of wages. Those top five. So this top five is our biggest one. So you're more likely to be employed in Anderson County through manufacturing, healthcare services, retail trade, accommodations and food services, or educational services. So that is important. Those are our top 5 jobs in Anderson County. So this is our wages. Now the interesting thing about this is those top 5 that I was talking about. You can make good money in manufacturing, you make good money in healthcare, and somewhat in educational services as well. But retail trade and accommodation and food services being one of our biggest employers, those tend to be lower wages. So that is something for us to keep in mind about how people are employed in Anderson County and the wages that they do make. So this is the wage distribution. This shows Anderson County in the gray, South Carolina in the blue, and the United States in the red. As you guys can see, United States overall makes more money than we do here. South Carolina as overall makes more money. Anderson County is pretty firmly in this 35,000 to 50,000, so that's most people are going to fall within that range. So this is the comparison of growth in per capita income. As you can see, United States as a whole is outpacing us. South Carolina does outpace us a good bit, and then we do trend a little bit lower than South Carolina. And this one is a fun one for me. So this is the comparison of cost of living index. So we have Anderson County, Greenville, Atlanta, Charlotte, and the United States as a whole. For the most part, our cost of living is less, except in one area, our health. Our healthcare costs more. Different theories on that. It could be our aging population, so demand, so therefore demand spikes, prices spike. I don't have a solid answer for why our healthcare is more expensive than the other 3 cities and the United States as a whole, but that is just what the data shows. So this is resilience. This is the new element. It is about environmental resilience. And I'm going to go briefly into where did this element come from. So Resilience is the ability of a community to respond, adapt, and thrive under changing conditions, including but not limited to recurrent burdens and sudden disasters. So this does include things like tornadoes, hurricanes, and things of that nature. So South Carolina's Office of Resilience was created in 2020, and it had three main goals. It was housing recovery following a federally declared disaster, mitigation against future flood risk, and resilience planning. So South Carolina's governor decided that he didn't really like spending a whole lot of money on disaster recovery. So he mandated the creation of the what's called SCORE, which is the South Carolina Office of Resilience. This was a federal, or not, a statewide mandate for us to look at our resilience to natural disasters. So making sure that we're not putting ourselves at more risk for natural disasters than we need to, and therefore needing federal assistance or state assistance in order to get out of that mess. So Anderson County's primary threats when it comes to resilience is our extreme heat/drought, winter weather, which is our ice storms, tornadoes, tropical storms. It does have hurricanes, but for the most part, hurricanes become tropical storms by the time they hit us. Hailstorms, thunderstorms, and heavy precipitation events. That, of course, leads to things like flooding and flash flooding, and then earthquakes. So this is the river basins of South Carolina. This is a little bit boring, but it's one of my nerd sides, so I apologize in advance. All right, this is South Carolina, but keep in mind, water does not care about political boundaries. So what's in North Carolina comes down here. So it's important for when we do resilience planning and watershed planning that we realize that the water from Pickens County doesn't just stop at Anderson County's border. Also wise, our water doesn't stop at Abbeville's county line. So making sure that we are including other jurisdictions in our planning, as well as being prepared for where water comes from, because it's not just going to be from here. And then this is, of course, the river basins. The two river basins we have is Saluda and then the Savannah. So the Saluda is, of course, up in Powdersville, Piedmont area, and then Savannah is the rest of us. And then this is our watersheds. For you guys, it's mostly the Savannah River and Big Creek. And this is the Social Vulnerability Index. So this is an interesting website if you'd like to go. It's the Agency for Toxic Substance and Disease Registry. So the Social Vulnerability Index, it is who, if we did have a natural disaster, who is most likely to be impacted. So that is people who are most likely to be impacted by disasters are the elderly, it's disabled, young children, and minorities. As you can see from this right here, you guys are around here, and this area is more likely to be vulnerable to natural disasters if there is one. So the good news is, I don't want to scare you guys. The good news is a lot of this data that you're about to see comes from our emergency management division, and they have a hazard mitigation plan that they did, I believe, in 2017, possibly 2019. They have done a fantastic job of going ahead and kind of planning for this. So we, Anderson County as a whole, actually went ahead and planned for hazard mitigation and resilience before we were mandated by the governor. So we are a little bit ahead of the curve. Our emergency management division is already got plans in place, and so hopefully when we get reevaluated, that we will not have quite as much vulnerability. So this is our drought monitor. We haven't had a major drought in a while, so we are due for one. I'm expecting it this summer. We'll see if I'm right. But droughts are one of our biggest hazards. Winter storms, we typically have about one a year, knocking out power, needing generators. And then winter weather risk. Good news is you guys aren't too much at risk for that. So for the most part, Powdersville and Piedmont, they get the worst of it. So, and then tornadoes usually have about one a year. Of course, Seneca got hit with that tornado a few years ago, so it is definitely a risk for this area. And then hailstorm events, usually about one a year. And thunderstorms, usually about 2 a year. This is notable thunderstorms, ones that our Emergency Management Division determined were notable and did damage. So yes, we do have more thunderstorms than 2 a year, but as far as doing actual damage. And then this is just a map of our 100-year and 500-year floodplains. We do have regulations that do help mitigate the flooding risk. If you were to build within a floodplain, we do have regulations that prevent just willy-nilly building in a floodplain, because that is one of the things that the governor kind of wanted to stop, building in areas that are prone to flooding. All right, so briefly going over the 2026 comprehensive plan, I believe Tiana has a suggestion box. So if there's things that concern you in your community, things you'd like to see in your community, please fill out that piece of paper and put it in the suggestion box. This plan, 2026 plan has not been completed. It is being worked on now. It is going to be a major project, but things that you will be seeing in that plan are new future land use maps. So we will be going through and consulting the community on how you would like your community to look in the future. We will also have new land use maps. That is a current land use map. Right there is your current land use map behind you. So if you were interested on what is, well, in 2016 was the land use map. You feel free to take a look at that. So things to think about when we're discussing the 2026 comprehensive plan for you guys, because involving the community, you guys know your community better than anyone does. You know what your hopes and dreams for this area is. So definitely need your input. So things of how do we want to manage growth? Again, I have to be kind of realistic on this. People are coming. So how do we want to manage that? Do we want to focus high density residential in certain areas in order to preserve green space in other areas? What do we want our priorities to be? Unfortunately, there's only so much money that the government has. So what areas do we want to focus on our capital improvements? As much as we'd like to do everything in the world, unfortunately, money is a limited resource. What projects do we want to focus on? What kind of community projects would you like to see? And after the comprehensive plan is complete, what ordinances are we willing to pass to support the comprehensive plan? That was meant for council. So that was a carryover, I apologize. So long-range planning for Anderson County. Term planning is used to describe activities conducted to prepare and organize for the future. What do we want the community to look like in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Again, being realistic about this, the people are coming. How do we want our communities to look? How do we want our communities to look for our children? How can we build a future that our children want to stay in Anderson County? Going over population growth trends, that's what I just kind of mentioned, that people are coming. They're not going to stop coming anytime soon. Unfortunately, we're too good of a place to live. That was a joke. That was a joke. And again, having realistic expectations of what our community will look like. Again, future transportation needs, high gas prices. Can we provide better transportation for people who don't have cars? I did throw in self-driving cars because that is fascinating to me. I'm wondering where that is going to go in the future. And if this proposal is implemented, how will it impact the character of the neighborhood? Looking at all alternatives. So that is where you guys come in. I can sit down all day with a piece of paper. I can draw out this amazing plan, or at least I think it's amazing. And then one of you guys points out, yeah, that's not going to work because of this, this, and this. I don't live in your community. I need your input on how do you want your community to look like, and where do you guys want to go? So this is the discussion for the suggestion box. Realistically, what do you want your area to look like? In regards to economic development, what do we want Anderson County to look like? So, you know, are there industries that you guys would want to come to, you know, Anderson? And what are the consequences of density and urban sprawl? So when I talked about the people are coming, where do we want those high density populations to go? Because we can't have too much urban sprawl or else we will sacrifice our entire green space. So making sure that we have mapped of where do we want these high density housing developments to go and where do we want to preserve that green space.
We certainly thank Brittany for getting you up to date on the updates for this current plan that we have. And on that map that she pointed out, there is a link on the county website to the current plan that's in place that was adopted in 2016. So the only thing that is changing in the 2016 plan are the figures that she just showed you. 2026 plan, which we are working on, which is due in 2026, will encompass all the areas that Brittany just spoke about, plus the concerns that you have for development in the Homeland Park area. So we are pro-Anderson. Let's get that straight. As the Planning and Development Department, we're concerned about blighted neighborhoods. We're concerned about how we're going to make the infrastructure fit what's in place now and how we're going to further develop this community so that we not only bring industry, different facilities to come into this area and invest in this area, but also make us more appealing to developers and people who want to move here. What the comprehensive plan does do, it does, having one in place, does allow us to apply for grants, funding, and all type of assistance in doing that type of development. There are still a lot of communities in South Carolina that do not have a comprehensive plan, and they are not eligible for grants. So this is a very important factor that we in Anderson County took the initiative in 2016 to develop that plan, which expires in 2026. The new plan in 2026 will go to another 10 years, and we'll have a 5-year update. So in the 2026 update plan that we will do, that plan will go to 2036. So it's very important that we consider everything that you want to have done, everything that you want to address, so that we can develop this area and Anderson and the entire county to make sure we maintain not only the historic look, the country living look, the appeal that make Anderson County, but to also be proactive in having development and industry and innovation come and maintain our current growth. Because I come from an area in the low country, I'm originally from Allendale, South Carolina, and we did not plan, and when 95 changed their mind about coming through Allendale, my whole town died. So this is important about how we develop this area, because your similar experience is when the mills left. So we want to try to avoid that type of situation and have stability and growth. So we will take a few questions. If you do have some information that you want to write down, there's a suggestion box.
Well, as Brittany and Henry just discussed, this is updates. You will have an opportunity to voice your concerns, David, that you're talking about when we start doing, when we get the map out, like Brittany said. She's going to have.
That's what we're doing here.
What this is a 5-year update plan. The 2016 comprehensive plan has already been adopted. The law requires us every 5 years to do those statistical data that Brittany went over, which and the governor added an additional element, the resilience. So
The planning's already been done. Y'all just tell
Hold
me
on.
what the plan is.
Hold
So
on.
we didn't get a chance to voice our concern.
Hold on. What Mr. Yeomans is telling you that when we start working on that 2026 plan, we're going to be coming back to all the communities with a map, David, to answer your question, and you all tell us what you want in your community. This plan here that we showed you, that Brittany showed you tonight,
2 years.
gives updates of what we require. It's more statistical updates. It's not a plan to go back to do what was done in 2016. We'll have that. Walter and I've talked about that a number of times. You'll have a chance to do that.
This suggestion boxes that you guys are filling out is just to give us an idea, a starting point. That is what this is today. Like, I'm sorry if that caused confusion, but she is correct. We will be doing more community meetings in 2026, but this is to get us started, to help us as staff understand what your concerns are and go forward.
What would you like to see in the next comprehensive plan?
I would like to see a change to the application rule that I kept asking about. I'd like to know that when those applications go before the planning commission, that they know that the schools can handle it or they can't. The fire department, can they handle it or not? Instead of just a generic form. I'm often get accused of not being for development at all, and it's not that incomplete. I just want to see that our infrastructure can handle it, and most importantly, that our schools and our children have the same education and they're afforded the same education as everyone else in the county. And that's really my biggest issue with development at this time. I hope to see the beginning of Homeland Park and trying to become a township and incorporate. I'd like to see for us, it's been talked about for more than 40 years, and I would like to see things come back to our community. Businesses. One of the things where they keep talking about development, I wish people fought for the development for businesses as much as they do in income housing and higher income housing. I really don't care about that as much as I care to see the businesses come here. And every time I'm turning the corner, I'm not seeing the businesses that we deserve in our community. I know that we are low income in certain areas, but like I said in the meeting, we go to restaurants and the same ones that are up into town. So I believe they would work here also. I mean, Starbucks is coming, Tractor Supply's here. I'd like to see those things come back and kind of boost our community. But us leaving out of here and allowing tobacco shops, and I see so many businesses that are kind of like predatory lending in a way. And a lot of people don't know how to get out of that. I mean, I'm guilty from being low income myself for having to learn how to get out of that situation. And I hate to see my community be burdened by those kind of things.